Okay, so is it recording?
I don't think so.
Now I think, yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah. All right. So,
Yes.
so for today's session, like I said, we will be listening to each and every one of you pitch your final project based on the text that you have chosen, based on tentative interest, research interest that you have developed, and if possible, even a tentative thesis statement. What is this paper about? What is your final project about? So I would like to invite you to present. You can take turns. Who would like to go first?
May I, Doctor?
Yes, please. Go ahead, Ali.
Okay. Hello, Doctor. Hello, everyone. Today I just want to mention for the text that I already focus on to be prepared for my final project. Actually, after I began to read these 5 emerging texts that you, Doctor, sent us before 2 weeks, about 2 weeks, suddenly I found myself actually interested and to read the text that is Though I Get Home, that is by Wyzet Chen. Everything around this text actually interested me to choose this text and to be in from the some analysis, and specifically the characters or the author of this text. So I think that the author of this text, who is Y.Z. Chin, is a courageous character, who is Chin, and how she suffered to write this text as this type of book as possible as she can. The main reason behind choosing this text is that me interest in these issues that the author herself focusing on. The author represents me in doing something. As Chen wrote this story without restrictions. I mean, why that Chen, when she wrote this text without any restrictions, without any limitations, without any, and unaffected by anyone. Even the authority do not affect on her whatever she wants to write about. So whatever will happen later on, but the most important thing is my role in this life, my mind, my idea, my thought to be presented to the world without any fear. This is the idea that I find myself, Victor, represent me at the same time represent the author of this text. The most important thing that I want to mention here is the concept of anti-establishment. As anti-establishment viewpoint or ideology, which goes against the traditional and social and political and economic values. The main character in this text is Isabella Sin. This character represents the anti-establishment against authority.
Which story? Sorry, Ali. Which story? Because it's a collection of short stories. So which story are you referring to?
Though I Get Home, Victor.
The short story, okay.
Yes. So the character of the main character of this story, who is Isabella Sin, represents the anti-establishment against authority and conformity. Since she joins political protest and writes a poem, defies the surrounding traditions in Malaysian society. Actually, Doctor, I like these types of things, these type of ideas that I like everyone or every character or every author, whatever he was. I like the way he talk, the way he has to present his ideas, his writing, just like exactly why Chen, why that Chen, because she even imprisoned and suffer and struggles to write this text and many other ones. So the story then, bright and clear, of mother and her Elizabeth daughter may consider the rebellious or deviation against the norms and values of their society, which supports the concept of anti-establishment. Thank you, editor.
All right, brilliant. Okay, so the title is Though She Gets Home, right? Not Though I Get Home, right?
Sorry?
The
Though I
title,
get home. Though I get home.
the title of the story.
Though I get home.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I thought it's Though She Gets Home. That's the title of the short story. Though I Get Home is the title of the collection.
Okay.
That's why I was asking you which story in the collection, Though I Get Home, which story you're referring to. So you're referring to the story Though She Gets Home about Isabella Sin, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. So you are looking at one particular short story in this collection. So when you present your corpus, you will have to describe the story that you are referring to. It's a particular short story from an anthology entitled Though I Get Home by Y.Z. Chin, published in 2018. So that will be your introduction to the research corpus. Okay, and then describe the particular short story, which is Though She Gets Home, which is the fourth story in this collection. Okay,
Yes. Okay.
right.
Okay.
So I like your introduction. I like your I particularly like when researchers are able to position themselves in a research. When you're doing a research, even if the corpus is not from your region, right? You are able to locate yourself. You as a reader, you
Yes.
have your own social reality, your reader-defined social reality. So you locate your reader-defined social reality, focusing primarily on the issue of courage and anti-establishment. You said that at the beginning. So I like it when you as a reader, all of you the same, when we are able to identify our interests as well as be able to locate ourselves in the text that we are reading. That is a sure sign you're choosing the right text. Okay, so this is a very good tip when you are choosing text or corpus, research corpus for your research, even for your master's thesis. Make sure it's a text that speaks to you. You might not find yourself in the story, but you feel like it echoes your interests, your concerns. That's a very good indication that that story will be open and accessible to you as a researcher. Okay, so Ali, my suggestion for you would be number one, to start with your literature review by reading on this particular author's background. Do a literature review in terms of the author, in terms of previous studies on the author. It's only been 2 years, so I doubt much work has been done on the author, but you never know, right? So do a literature review on the corpus. Also begin reading on anti-establishment. What are some strategies of anti-establishment that writers use in their writing? When you think about anti-establishment, you think of rioting, you think of picketing, you think of these kinds of actual physical actions. But as a writer, how does the author define her social reality and incorporate the theme of anti-establishment in her writing. Right? What kind of things does what are some strategies that are known that writers incorporate in their art, their work of art, which Chin herself, or I'm not sure whether it's a he or a she, incorporates in their writing. So three things to
Female author.
female, huh? Okay. So three things, Ali, to
You
start
mean
to start you off on. And then next week I will get feedback how you're progressing, and I will listen to your progress, and I will give you more suggestions on how to proceed. Okay?
okay? Thank you,
Yeah.
Rita. Inshallah, I will. Thank you.
So all the writings that what you have read just now, compile them. Just keep compiling them, and then eventually, when it comes to putting your final project together, you look through it, and then you can rearrange and structure your essay better. But continue to do your work. Well done. Okay, who would like to
Okay.
go next? Hello,
So I'll go next.
Ken.
Okay, so as we discussed before, I think I will be going with Shirikao's story, Ripples and Other Story. I think I will be using her book. And then the thing that I'll be focusing on perhaps is examine the strategies of emotional regulation by male characters in the short stories. I'm not sure, I might change the title, but the core is this. And then for the literature review, I have managed to find two, I would think, solid articles about emotional regulations, which are linked to psychopathology, but I will drop the psychopathology part because it's linked to mental health, like depression, anxiety, and all this, which I think if I were to go into this, it will be too broad. So I plan to be more focused, just to keep it like not too big, like um, just focusing on the six style, 6 to 5 style. They give like six, but I'm taking like five, which is the most prominent strategy for emotional regulations. And then I'll be looking at probably 3 stories in Shirikao's short stories collection, which provides, in these 3 stories combined, there will be total about 4 characters. And in these 4 characters, they have like different generations. So as a father figure, as a son, and as an individual, and things like that. So I think from there I can like maybe explain further, because not just individual, but as a figure, like as a head of family, and how they deal with this, and as a son, how they go against this, and how they regulate their emotion. So, and then for my draft and all, for the introduction, I will definitely I'm planning to look through like the author and the background on, particularly on this book, and I will have to include the community, like what is this community made of, and state that it's not entirely so-called the Malaysian community yet.
When you say community, what community are you referring to?
As in race, because her predominantly her most of her characters that she has wrote are mostly on the Chinese and Indian. And in Ripples, there's only like 2 stories about the Malay community, which I will be including in my short story. So I think I will highlight that in my essay, just to have like a background info thing.
The context, yeah.
Yes, thank you, the context.
So these 3 short stories and the 4 characters are all Malay characters?
No, 2 are Malay characters. One is 2 Malay, 2 Chinese for now.
And
Yes.
the 2 Malays are the
Father and
roles,
son.
father and son.
Yes.
The 2 Chinese?
One is a father and another is as a son also, but they're not related. Yeah, it's different stories.
Father and son, but they're not related to each other.
Yeah,
Oh, one
yeah.
story is a father figure, but there isn't any son.
Yeah, the son is not mentioned in the story.
Can you give me the stories, the 3 stories that you are interested in?
Ripples. Ripples is the name of the short story, which gives the role of a father, that father figure, Chinese father figure.
Mhm.
And the second one is Know My Name. Know My Name is the son, the Chinese boy. And then the third story is The Prize. And in this particular story, The Prize, it will be talking about a family relation. So the father and the son figures are both in this story. They are related.
This is the Malay characters.
Yes, yes. So far I've read through, so I'll be looking at this tree, but maybe I will look through like other stories again. But for now, it's these 3 stories. Yep.
Out of all her stories, are there when you because at this stage, Jennifer, at this stage, because you've kind of have a clear sense of because I think this is the topic from your seminar, right?
Yes.
And emotional regulation was the conceptual framework you use for your seminar. So I can see how you seem to already have a clear sense of how you want to analyze your methodology. You have a very clear sense of it. So that's good. So at this stage, part of the data collecting stage, one thing good to do is, even if these information will not appear in your essay, it's good to have tabulate your data in a very comprehensive way. What that means, and this is for everybody, huh? What that means is for you to know exactly what kind of characters are portrayed in these collections of short story, in this collection of short stories. Ali, I would suggest the same for you as well. Meaning, even though you have identified one short story called Though She Gets Home, I need you to know what all these stories are about, and if there are other stories that also picks up on the theme of anti-establishment. So that statement will have to appear in your final project. That's an introduction to the writer and the corpus. Likewise with Jennifer, you need to be able to just briefly describe like an overview of this collection of short stories, focusing on your scope. If Ali's scope was anti-establishment, Jennifer, your scope is on the male characters.
Yes.
So you need to do a kind of brief summary of all the characters in this collection called Ripples and Other Stories, right?
Okay.
You need to just briefly say, okay, how many stories there are?
There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 stories.
So out of 8 stories, how many stories focus on male characters as primary characters or protagonists, and how many have male characters as marginalized or minor characters? That's number 2. Then number 3, how many have this father-son kind of a relationship? You know, whether the father is invisible or unavailable, or whether the son is unavailable, doesn't matter. So you briefly need to introduce the story based on your scope. Once you have introduced the stories and based on your scope, you can then say, for the purpose of this paper, you will choose stories 1, 2, and 3, Ripples, Know My Name, and The Prize, because it follows, it fits the scope of your study.
Sorry.
Yeah, that it's got the father-son characters, that the male characters play a major role in the story, in the development of the story, and they are from a particular ethnic background that is part of your concern. So if you are able to kind of delineate clearly your scope, then it becomes more objective. Otherwise, it's like, it's very subjective. Okay, I choose 2 stories that has Chinese characters and I choose 1 story that has Malay characters. You don't want that. You want your research to be objective, to be scientific. So the way you describe your scope, given your interest, will help you rationalize your text selection. Okay, you have
initially when I choose these 3 stories, I didn't realize their connection was father and son. I actually choose the 3 of them because they show really prominent strategies of emotional regulations.
okay.
So that's why I chose it. Oh, okay. I think I will take
You see,
into
the
account
thing
and
is,
look back in. Yeah.
your thesis statement shouldn't be your research findings should not be to support the availability of emotional regulation strategies, because your research it depends on your thesis statement. Your research should show to what extent Shirley Cao uses these strategies in her writing. But if you chose 3 short stories that has it, then it's a given that your findings will show that Shirley Cao does incorporate strategies of emotional regulation in her writing. However,
Okay.
if you read all 8 stories, and out of 8 stories you find that these 3 demonstrates high level of emotional regulations among the male characters, whereas the other 5 seem to demonstrate a more traditional portrayal of male characters. Okay, this is an important finding.
Oh, but I just thought that if I took all 8 stories, it would be too much.
Depends on your scope.
Okay. Okay.
It depends on your scope, because if your scope is to show it, like I said, it all depends on your thesis. What is it that you are trying to prove or demonstrate or examine? So all of you, Huda and Alice and Ali, it's not so much how many stories do you need to use, but it's more about what is it that you hope to prove in doing this research. Ultimately, the big picture should not be about the text, the short stories that you're reading or the novel that's not the ultimate impact of your reading. The impact could be for you to say something about the author-defined social reality. It could be to say something about Malaysian society. It could be to say something about Malaysia in history, how Malaysia in the past and Malaysia now has changed. So it all depends on your thesis statement, right? So with Jennifer, I would say you can decide. But I would like you to know the 8 stories well in terms of the scope that you are interested in, which is male characters. Do that first, so that when I see you next week and I ask you these kind of questions, you will be able to tell me, okay, out of the 8 stories, these 3 stand out for these reasons. The other 5 appear to not have any elements of emotional regulation, or the male characters are not prominent. Then we can say, okay, that's why we chose these 3. We cannot say we're choosing the 3 that we have identified because they have very high level of emotional regulation, because that's the findings. That means your research is concluded even before you start. Do you understand?
Okay.
Do you understand, Jennifer?
I need to process it later.
Yeah, okay. But okay, I give you another example. If you're doing a research to find out how female characters are portrayed in a writer's work, and you choose a short story in which the female characters are poorly portrayed and you ignore the others, And then you say, oh, this particular writer portrays female in a very stereotypical way. But you've only looked at one example by that writer in which she portrays the female characters poorly. Maybe she has many, many other stories that that shows female characters in a positive way. But because you have your bias in your text selection, the findings is also biased. Do you understand?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you,
in your
Doctor.
case, you are biased towards Shirley's portrayal of characters, male characters, who show a high level of emotional regulation. So the finding is already going to be biased to show that, oh, Shirley Cow, is a writer who portrays the male characters in a very well emotionally regulated manner. But that's only 3 stories out of 8. Whereas if you look at all 8 and you find that, okay, out of all 8, only these 3 demonstrate that, then there is more to conclude about the writer's social reality.
Okay.
Okay?
Better. Okay.
We'll
Thank you,
talk
Doctor.
more in the upcoming consultation, but for now, I would like you to get to know all the other stories and do a kind of a summary. You can have it in a table form if you find it useful. Like put each story out of the 8 stories, each story, and just identify who is the protagonist, male or female. What role do they play? Which ethnicity are they from? Are there any so a just general summary. I'm not asking you to do any analysis about emotional regulation. Okay, then based on that, you make up your mind in terms of which text you want to focus on. Ken?
Okay, sure, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, well done. Next, who would like to go next?
Doctor?
Yes. Go ahead, Vidya.
I chose The Garden of Evening Mists. I found it very a beautiful text that bubbles over all kind of things that I'm most interested in literary text. It is talking about nature, humanity, arts, and all kind of love, the sister love, the hate, and the personal love and the hatred, everything. I found it very interesting. So the author is he is Tan Tuan Ing, and it is as for the summary and the setting, I said something about Teo Yang Ling. She is the prisoner in Japanese prisoner in the Japanese during the World War II, and later she became a judge overseeing war crimes cases. And I said something about it, but the period it will be in 3 periods. The first one is the late 1980s, and when she returned and to the Japanese garden Yujiri of her as apprentice. And the second one, the early 1950s, when the main events of the novel took place, and the World War II, which provide a background of the story. And the author, he is Tan Tuan Ing. He studies law in London, and he is the first one who get the prize of what it's called, Man Booker Prize, and then Walter Scott Prize, and he got 25,000 pounds from Walter Scott Prize. So he is very prominent one, and he is very young. My literature review focused on 2 two articles. The Pylons uses the concept of Nietzschean resentment contained with the conscience of the novel's main character, Yang Ling, a war survivor who directs her subtle loathing against her Japanese former oppressor and toward a Japanese gardener who has lived in Malaysia after the war. The article analyzes the internalized hatred. And the article argues four main points: the justice as an invention of the powerless, forgetting as a positive form of repression, and the memory as a painful continuation of a promise, and the body at the site of history. And the other one I will be choose. Well, the other one for Tyson, 2014, they stated there are two approaches of studying history. For the most, there are two kinds of the historian, the old one, the traditional one. They concentrate on what happened and what does the event tell us about history. It means they only focus on the event and the consequences of it. As for the new historicists, how this event is tackled, they studied from many angles, deeper and more dimensions, and all the disciplines or media, art, and whatever concept, they studied from many different directions and dimensions. So I will, just a minute. So the project will analyze the novel and draw comparison between what is known about the Japanese invasion of Malaya, and the event in the novel. And the paper will present a discourse that comes from literature rather than the history books. The objectives will be compare the existing narrative and the discourse with the event and overall effect of the war, to understand the true motive of the Japanese from the invasion and the war, and to link the characters' mental health issues to the war. So this will be my summary about my presentation to be. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, good choice. I love this novel as well. I love the way it's written, and I think Tan Tuan Eng did a very good job capturing the nuances, of Yun Ling as well as Aritomo, the Japanese gardener, the gardener of the former emperor, and the relationship, the dynamics. I'm a little bit unclear of your focus or your interest, because you mentioned quite a few things. You talked about memory, you talked about history and how history is written or rewritten, how historians look at it and how new historicism as a discipline look at it. And you also talk about mental health issues. So based on all the past research done on this particular novel, very successful novel, which has since been made into a movie, what is it that you are interested in? Are you focusing on something specific? Have you identified something specific?
Well, I will focus on the way that they tackle this novel by the historian, depending on the on the literature corpus, not the historian, what they have, the traditional historian.
So you're using new historicism. You want to
Yes.
see how this novel rewrites
Presented.
history,
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
how the novel.
Yes, doctor. And I compare the existing narrative and discourse with the event as overall effect of the war, and understand the motive, the real motive of the Japanese, for their invasion to the war, and to link the character mental health issue with to the war, because she suffered so much, and there was a struggle. There's inner struggle between love and hatred, between suffer and hope. But I can't tackle this because it has been tackled earlier. So
Yeah.
I will just focus on these things. So what is your suggestion, doctor, if you don't mind?
Because it seemed like you're covering a lot of different things. That's my concern as well. It's your scope needs to be very focused in order for you to come up with a reading that is impactful, that adds to the body of knowledge in this in the reading of this particular novel. As an Iraqi reading this novel, is there something about the novel that speaks to you? Because you and Ali present a very unique perspective as an outsider looking at Malaysian literature in English, looking at Malaysian corpus, echoing the history of Malaysia, but still your horizon, your reader respond, perspective, the horizon of expectation that you bring into the reading of this novel, or the horizon of expectation that you come with as you approach this novel, should be used as an angle that allows originality in the reading of this novel. You're right, other writers, other researchers may have read this novel, but their perspective is different. Coming from Iraq in the context of the occupation and the horrors that Iraq is currently still experiencing because of the American invasion. We talked about this last semester in comparative literature when we looked at the corpse washer and how that impact captured in that novel is something that you and your family and your society experience, right? So as you read this novel, is there something that you are able to suggest that maybe other readers are not able to, because they have not experienced that kind of vivid first-hand trauma, I want you to kind of explore that, because I don't want your final project to merely echo issues that others have already said. So one way to show originality is to always bring your perspective and your background. So earlier, when Ali said the reason he chose that short story, though she gets home, was because he likes the theme of anti-establishment. And I said to that, it's always good to locate yourself in the story. And Huda, you started off by saying you really like this story because, right? So there's something about this story that draws you in, even if it's set in a foreign land, in foreign history of a foreign land. You are still able to kind of find yourself in that story. So use that point of connection and take it further. So if the point of connection is with regard to the central character, Yunling. What is it about Yunling that you are able to kind of associate with? What is it about her sense of resilience, her sense of a strong character despite the trauma that she's gone through? What is it about her that makes her a character that you remember or you want to explore further? Think about that. Okay. You are right. Others may have written about the love-hate issue, mental health, and all that. But I would like you to find an angle that speaks to you, that allows you to express your own thoughts and your own ideas about the issue that you are interested in. If it helps, think about it as a comparative study. A comparative study between your own background and how things are, and the situation in Iraq and the kind of trauma that has been left amongst the people because of it, as well as in this novel, and how this novel captures a fictionalized representation of an actual event that happened to the Malayan people, especially the Chinese, and how they were treated by the Japanese. When you said that, one of your concern is to look at the real motive of Japanese occupation, it's a bit difficult to do that looking at a work of fiction. It's a bit difficult to find out, why did the Japanese occupy Malaya? Why did they come here? It's difficult to find that from the perspective of a Malaysian writer. So as a Malaysian writer writing this novel, Tan Tuan Eng gives his author-defined social reality. But you, as a reader, cannot depend on Tan Tuan Eng because, number one, he's not a historian, right? He's writing a work of fiction. So he will use certain poetic license to write the story the way he wants to write it, right? So maybe some characters will come across more brave and more courageous than others. Maybe some characters will come across more resilient than others, because this is his intention as a writer, right? But we cannot use this text as a way to uncover the real motive of Japanese occupation, because this is just an author's perspective. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, doctor.
Yeah, but I think you kind of identified something, because your initial statements indicate that there was something about this character, specifically about Yunling, that caught your attention. So I want you to stay with that a little bit more. Find more reasons why Yunling's character, her culture is different, nationality is different, set in a different time zone, but she spoke to you. Likewise, when I was giving you all the example about The Return and Ravi, I felt exactly the same. Ravi, he comes from a different background, a different timeline. He's a male character, religion and culture and all that different. But there was something about that character that I felt that I could resonate with, that I can associate with him on certain aspects, on the way he felt that he couldn't belong in his own community. That's the point of connection for me, and I use that as a way for my research, way forward for my research. So that's what I'm suggesting for you, Huda. Explore what is it about Yunling's character that you like, and then compare with what others are saying about Yunling. Then find the gap between what people have said and what you are interested in. What do you want to say about Yunling's character that other people have not said, other researchers, other scholars have not said? Tell me what you are interested. So next week, this is the task for you for next week, right? What is it about Yunling's character that you like? is there something in her that you see in yourself? You know, always start with that kind of a point of connection, and then we will find the right kind of methodology for you to study in order to say those statements in an objective fashion. Is that all right?
Yes, Doctor. Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you very much. Finally, Alice?
Doctor, I'm interested in the Garden of the Evening Mist too.
Okay, good.
Because I have watched the movie version of it, and I really like the style of it, and I'm interested in the history of Japanese occupation of the Malay. I want to briefly talk about what I'm interested in the story. First is I'm interested in the Japanese occupation of the Malay.
Of Malaya. Malaya.
Of Malaya. Yeah.
Malay is the people. Malaya is the land before it became Malaysia. Malaya, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. First is how the Japanese invaders treat how did the Japanese invaders treat the Malays, and I'm also interested in the camps mentioned in the book, like Golden Lily, and second, I'm interested in the comfort of women, like Yulin's sister, Yue Hong. This is the history I want to talk about in my final project. And the second is the trauma got by the Japanese. First is Yuli's trauma. The question is how did she deal with the trauma in her life, and her attitude to Aritomo and the Japanese professor. Did she really recover from the trauma in the end of the novel? And for the invader, like Aritomo, his attitude to Yulin. What is his attitude to Yulin? And should he be blamed because of his invader for all the time? That's all my interested. And in China, this trauma, there is also the trauma like Yulin's. It's a very Euro and long-lasting question for us to remember or to forget. If we choose to remember, this very cruel memory will remain. If we choose to forget, my grandma and my grandpa also suffered from that time. I think it's impossible to forget. So that's the question, I think.
Okay,
That's all.
Alice, you've got your title. You have to put remember or to forget somewhere in the title of your paper. And you know, that's exactly what I mean. You see, you all look at the four of you today. Each of you bring in your unique perspective, your background, your culture, your nationality, your perspective, your worldview. You as a reader bring in your definition of your social reality. And that definition from the Iraqi perspective to the Malaysian perspective to the Chinese from China, mainland China perspective, it's so beautiful, so colorful, so vivid. So when you read the text, make sure you bring that worldview that you have accumulated, you know. So don't read the text purely from a formalist perspective of looking at the text and seeing what's in the text and the historical context and all that. You need to bring in your reader's perspective, your reader's response to the text, okay? I think, you know, I would say the same that I said to Huda. This is not a historical text, right? So you cannot read this as if it's a real depiction, but you can examine the extent Tan Tuan Eng as an author. How has he defined the social reality of the comfort women in this novel? You know, and I think that theme of remember or to forget, you need to explore that. How does Yun Ling struggle with that? You know, what are some things that she does to remember and what are some things that she does to forget? And when you think about this notion of remember or to forget, I want you to explore psychology, psychosocial framework, that this notion of rememory. The same, sorry, I haven't shared, have I? In African American novels, especially in former slave novels, the same idea is relevant. In Toni Morrison's novel Beloved, she captures the experience of this former slave, and you know, when you've gone through a kind of very traumatic experience like slavery and you're now free, how do you live? Do you remember what you've gone through or do you forget? How do you live? So I want you to kind of look at that notion, that concept of rememory. Look at how scholars have studied novels about trauma, specifically this kind of trauma, not trauma like you know, one-off experience, but trauma that involves an extended period of time where you live through a particular traumatic, tragic life, and you come out of it. And that question, do you remember or do you forget? How do you and how do you juggle between the two? Can you heal by just forgetting? So this concept called rememory might be something you would be interested in. So I would like you to explore that, you know, and see where that takes you. But don't look at this text as a history book or as a historical depiction. The kind of issues that you are interested in, focus on the author's social reality and how the author depicts it. To what extent is that depiction as seen in historical books? Yes, you can do that, but you cannot look at it as a way to judge what the Japanese did, whether the Japanese did the right thing, the wrong thing, whether Aritomo should be blamed, shouldn't be blamed, because they're all fictional characters. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, doctor.
Yeah. So, but I think I mean, you caught me at that statement, remember or to forget, because I think it's always, that's another that's another good tip for all of us, find that kind of attention, because you don't want your characters and your analysis to be very clinical and looks very nice and neat. These are all the things that's available in the text, and you don't have anything to argue for or against, right? So your writing, your discussion must have some kind of this tension between this and that, between one and another. And the writer appears to problematize the issue, not to make it sound as if he or she has an answer, right? The writer doesn't have the answer. The writer presents her worldview or his worldview to you, the readers, based on his author-defined social reality. You are now reading the writer's worldview and making up your own mind. That's why your questions, did Yunling recover from the trauma? How did she deal with it? Did she recover from the trauma? What about Aritomo's attitude? Should Aritomo be blamed for it? Because you're asking those questions and you're wondering, within the circumstance that they were in, it's not a black and white answer, right? But if you read historical books, it's almost like saying, these are all the good people and these are all the bad people. These are the people who did the harm and the atrocities, and these are the victims, right? But in a work of fiction, there's a lot of gray lines, right? And you as a reader, your role is not to say Aritomo is bad for what he did. Yunling has not recovered from her trauma and she dies with that trauma, and that trauma becomes cancer in her. You cannot make those kinds of statements. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, doctor.
But Huda, I see your hand. I'll come to you in a minute. But we can problematize the issue. Ali is interested in anti-establishment. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? How does this particular story develop that idea? Problematize it, make it into a problem, and argue the case and discuss the issue. But it shouldn't be a clean and clinically, we're not doing a scientific experiment. You put a little bit of this chemical and a little bit of that chemical and poof, you get this other new concoction and this is the finding. Ours is not this straightforward and clinical. Ours is quite messy. Research in humanities, it's quite messy because life is like that, right? You cannot have a straightforward, clear answer of do all these things and your life will be perfect. It doesn't work like that, right? Because it's the conflicts that makes the story more powerful. Okay? Okay, Huda, sorry, you wanted to say something.
Sorry, doctor.
Yes.
Me and Alice, we chose the same novel.
Yeah.
So as for Yongling, she wasn't the comfort, she wasn't the comfort woman, but her sister Yongheng.
Yeah.
But she suffered by assisting her when they whip her. And this is, her body is a set of the trauma and the set of the historical events. And one of her finger had been cut, because she helped her sister. So her sister was always there, even not in her body. All the 3 periods, she was there. She was the hope and the most prominent, what we call suffering. She was there. She always spoke about this, the garden, and she has to fulfill. She felt the guilt that she want to fulfill her sister wish to make this garden, and she has to get close to that. We could say the oppressor, the one that he present the oppressor, remind her with the oppressor, and from this, you know, this relation, this struggle between love and hate and hatred, she concluded that she has to forgive and she has to reconcile, to be in reconciliate the event, the suffering, the trauma. So what can I use? I don't know, because you know, I'm so attached with this story of two girls, and in this peak of suffering there is hope, always hope. Even at the end, she decided that she will not expose the treasure, but she got the treasure in her body, you know. The map was in her body. So I don't know what to do. I am confused because
you're not confused. You're interested in a lot of different things, and I think that's the beauty of this novel, because it has a lot of things to offer the reader, you know. So as you were saying, this is what I usually do. This is my approach. So when I'm thinking of something, when I catch hold of a particular idea or concept, I will just quickly Google it and see where I'm able to go with it. So when Alice talked about remember or to forget, I remembered the concept rememory, because I studied this at the master's level when I was doing my master's, and I studied Toni Morrison's Beloved. And I remember writing a paper for my assignment on rememory. And I used this concept called rememory to study Australian Aboriginal autobiography by Sally Morgan, and how this notion of rememory is not negative, you know, because Alice asked, do you remember or do you forget? It's almost like saying one or another, black, white, good, bad. But there is something called rememory, where in remembering, you heal and you are able to move forward. So it's not one or another, you know. So when Alice said that, I remembered this notion called rememory. So I Googled that. Now, when Huda said about how trauma is on the body, it's not just on the mind. So I Googled trauma on body, and I find this book. This is something first time I'm finding, okay? The Body Keeps the Score. So this book, Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma. Maybe, Huda, you may want to look into something like this to show how the author, Tan Tuan Eng, kind of takes his character through a journey of healing in the end by going through the mind, the body, and the spirit, and how the healing takes place. And then you can analyze that if that's what you're interested in. But I would suggest read up in this aspect first. So this, which one was it I clicked? There was a PowerPoint using psychoanalysis, not this one. Basically, explore further, Huda. Explore this one. So explore further. So now the discipline you are interested in, you are using psychology's approach as well as psychoanalysis approach to study this novel. So this PowerPoint slide looks at post-traumatic syndrome disorder in which in which actual individual experience trauma, and how that trauma materializes on the mind, the body, and the person's personality, even in the way they live after the experience. You can use this framework to study the fictionalized character of Yun Ling. right? So that's one way to show that it manifests in her loss of memory. It manifests in her physical ailments. It manifests in her health issues, how trauma manifests. Because medically, these slides are from medical research, all right? So from the medical perspective, trauma is manifested on our mind, our body, and our person, right? It's manifested. Maybe you get aches and pains in certain parts of your body, not just the loss of a limb, like Yun Ling's character. It's not just that, but it's also things like you cannot sleep at night, right? You get nightmares. So there are other things that maybe your stomach, you just can't seem to digest food, and so lots of different manifestation. But it all has to depend on, number one, what are you interested to say about Yun Ling's character? Number two, what has already been said about Yun Ling's character by previous research? And the gap is where you come in. You fill in that gap. Okay? I'm not expecting answers from all of you today, but what I am suggesting to you, all of you, is this is part of the research process. This is part of the journey when you come up with an idea and you present the idea and people give you questions and you think about it and then you go explore some more and then you present again and then somebody gives you more questions. That's part of the journey, whether you're doing an undergraduate thesis, a master's thesis, or a PhD thesis, or even an assignment like a final project. This is part of the skills that you are developing. The skill sets that you are developing as a researcher is going to be the same. You're going to be using the same skill sets. The difference is the scope of study. If it's a PhD thesis, the scope is bigger. If it's a master's thesis, the scope is slightly smaller. If it's a final project, the scope is even smaller. Okay, so it all depends on your scope. What is it that you're interested in, as well as your corpus. Okay, and how you approach your research in order to make it original. It cannot be something is duplicating previous research. It has to add to what is already available. So that's where your literature review task comes in. Okay, you need to know what has already been done, especially in a novel as well known as The Garden of Evening Mist, which is now a very popular film, right? So the movie is 2019, the book is 2012. So a lot of work has been done. Okay, so both Alice and Huda, your task as a beginning is to find out all the things that's already been done in terms of research findings, be it at the research master's or PhD thesis, or even at the level of journal articles, book chapters, right? That's your first task, first order of business. Then next week, when you see me, you will give me a short review. And based on all that has been done, you will then identify what are you going to say? What are you going to add? How are you going to add that? Okay. Are you all right so far, Huda and Alice?
Doctor, I have a question for
Yes.
the novel.
Yeah. But you said you're looking at the movie because
yes, both movie and the novel. I first watched the movie before the class last time, and I decided to read the novel because I watched the movie.
But do you want to focus on the movie adaptation or do you want to focus on the book?
For me, I like focus on the movie because they have is more vivid for me.
No, what I mean is, if you focus on one text, one version of the text, which is the movie, you cannot bring in aspects of the book, meaning in your analysis, in your literature review, you can, of course, right? But in your analysis, your scope should be the corpus of your choice, which is the 2019 movie version, right? So that might be some changes or some modification in terms of character development or plot line between the book and the movie. Some things might be changed or modified in the book in the movie compared to the book. So you need to decide if your scope is the movie, then it has to be from the very beginning. You're talking about the movie. So whatever is missing from the book, you cannot bring it in your analysis, because you're not doing a comparative study, unless that's what you're planning to do, you know. So if you're doing a comparative study, then you need to say that also, that this is to study the comparison between the representation of, if you're looking at the comfort women, the representation of the comfort women in the book compared to the movie, and what's missing, and how the vivid representation in the movie changes the storyline. You know, it's so your scope will change now. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah, so you need to have a clear idea and a scope, and you have to follow it through. So that means your analysis, you need to see in which text can I have more data to analyze. Is it in the book or in the film? Okay, because if you don't have enough data, then what's your analysis going to be about? Got it?
Yes, I need some time to
decide. I'm giving you all these ideas, all of you. I'm giving you these ideas so that for the next week, you have something specific to work on. That means you've got no more assignments for my course, except for this research that you are working on now. No more e-tasks, no more reading outside the scope. Everything you will do from this point on until you complete your final project will be based on what you are interested in and the scope that you are defining for yourself. So this is how research is, right? When you have taught courses, you are given specific text to read, you're given specific tasks to do. But when you're doing your own research, it's very much your call, how you proceed with the research, right? And you have to keep asking yourself, what am I interested in again? What do I want to work on again? What's already been done on this again? What hasn't been done on this? How can I fill that? What framework do I need to use? So it's all on you. This is when you develop the independent researcher mindset. You ask the questions, you come up with the research design, you do the analysis. Okay?
Okay.
But I'm guiding you, each of you, I'm guiding you based on what you are interested in. So the more detailed you can make your statements, right, the easier it is for me to guide you along. So you need to learn to express your ideas in a more articulate manner. How do I do that? One way is to keep writing your thoughts down. Don't just have it in your mind. Write it down. So every day as you're looking through it, you're fine-tuning your draft and expressing your ideas in a more clear fashion. So when you come and talk to me, like how you are today, you're reading through what you have already been thinking about for a few days. And then when I hear it, I can pick up something and I will explore it further for you. That will be my role. So I will facilitate your progress, but you need to come in with something concrete and something specific. Okay?
Okay. And I want to ask one question.
Yes.
It seems there's a connection between the Yuli's resistment of Japanese and her love for Aritomo. I want to analyze about it, but I don't know how to analyze it.
Mm.
Mm.
What do you want to work? I mean, what is it that you are interested in? Because it's just a love story. So at the core of it, you know, Tan Tuan Eng
Yeah.
made these two characters who would otherwise be enemies because of the atrocities of the Japanese soldiers on the Chinese in Malaya, right? But
Yeah.
circumstance has changed when they find that they are able to connect with each other as human beings. You know, sometimes, you know, when you are with people, with strangers, you can either say, I don't know them and I don't want to get to know them, or you can let down your guard and get to know them. But these are just strangers. What about your enemies, people who you have been in conflict with for generations, right? The Muslims and the Jews, for instance, or the Shiites and the Sunnis in some parts of the world, right? And any other kind of combination. You know, that's back to, you know, the archetypal, you know, the Romeo and Juliet family feud, right? How the two families feud caused generation of misunderstanding, and because of that misunderstanding, people are not able to get to know each other for who they are, but they know each other based on the past, based on their histories. Right? So with Aritomo and Yunling, what I think Tan Tuan Eng has done is to kind of strip that enemy label, you know, the atrocity committer as well as the victim, right? The perpetrator and the victim. Even though Aritomo was not the one who committed the crime, but he represents the Japanese people who committed the crime, right? So, but by stripping that and allowing them to get to know themselves and each other as two human beings, you realize that we're not different. We have same interests and we have same inclinations and we enjoy the same things, and we can develop this feeling of compassion and kindness and love for each other. So I think that's what Tan Tuan Eng has managed to do by stripping the anger and the fear and the resentment, right? But what do you want to say about it? So that's where you would have to come in. Because when you said to remember or to forget, there is something there that I could kind of you know, guide you along. But if you want to look at the dynamics between Aritomo and Yunling, these are just two characters who the author has created a kind of a romantic scenario for them. But that's a very micro level reading of the text. But at the macro level, what does it suggest? That what if we get to know people, we will love them, even our enemies? I mean, what do you want to, what's the implication of that reading? So this is when you will have to explore beyond the romantic sensibilities of the story.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Yeah.
That's only a question when I'm
No.
reading the novel.
I like I said, you know, as a researcher, as a researcher, I think we need to allow ourselves to ask these questions and make ourselves curious and interested to explore further and make ourselves motivated to ask questions that others are not asking, or even brave enough to ask questions that others are not asking. Huda, are you okay? It's okay. Don't worry about it. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Okay. Yes. Any other questions?
Okay, Doctor. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. But always choose, you know, I will reiterate this, always choose a topic, a text, a writer, a focus that speaks to you, that you have something to contribute to, that maybe even helps address some of the things you are experiencing in life. And you're using your research as a way to channel and project your personal issues and concerns in an objective academic fashion. And that will make your research more impactful, not just to society, but more importantly to yourself. Okay?
Okay. Thank you, Doctor.
Anyone has any questions?
So far, so good, Doctor.
Good, brilliant. Okay, I'm going to keep the WhatsApp open. You tell me when you want to see me next week, but next week at 2 o'clock, we will meet for a short period of time for Alice to present the seminar. And after Alice has finished the seminar presentation, which will be around 20 minutes or so, you can either see me, you can continue to see me for consultation, or if you've already seen me earlier in the week, then you are free to go. Okay?
Okay, Doctor, all right.
Yeah, so you can negotiate a time with me, but you need time to work on all the things that I've asked you to do, so I will leave it to you. So for instance, if you want to see me Thursday morning next week for Alice and Jennifer, you can. If you want to see me at another time in the afternoon, Huda and Ali, you can. But make a personal consultation slot with me. Whatever it is, I need to see all of you at least once next week. You decide on the time.
Okay, Doctor.
Okay, Doctor. I prefer, Doctor, to prepare a draft next week in order to negotiate with each other, if you don't mind.
When you say draft, meaning?
Yes.
With me?
Just for, yes, Doctor, just for the first touch.
Yeah.
For my final project, in order to negotiate with each other.
Yeah, but I'm not going to read it. You are going to go through like today. But I really agree with you. I think you need to write it out in order to have a more focus and clear perspective of what you're interested in. When you write things down, somehow the scope will be more developed. When it's in your mind, you can be looking at a lot of different things, but the minute you write it down, you are forced to make certain kind of commitments. You're interested in this and you have to let go of that, even though you're interested in that also. But when you write it down, you realize that you can't be doing too many things. It's too ambitious, right?
Got it.
But would you like to see me next Thursday also, Ali?
Till now, Doctor, it is okay with me if I see you on Thursday after Alice's presentation.
Can.
Okay.
So you all let me know in advance. But whatever it is, Thursday 2 to 4 will be our slot. So if you want to see me on Thursday, it's fine. It's just that you will have to wait your turn. Whereas if you made a time, an appointment with me, then you just come for your consultation and then you're free to go. Okay?
Okay, Victor, thank you. Just one more question, if you don't mind.
Yes, go ahead.
Relating with the task 4 and 5. If we achieve them, it is okay to upload during these days?
Yes.
Okay.
Just finish the 5E task that I have given you, and then you'll be done for your other assignments because you have uploaded your video essay, you've done with the seminar, the 5E task, and then the final project, and then you should be done.
Okay, Victor. Right. Thank you.
Any other question?
No, Doctor. So far, okay.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
I think I'm quite happy with the kind of interest that you are showing in this corpus, of Malaysian literature and English. especially for Ali, Huda, and Alice, because you are away and you are not able to go and choose a text for yourself at the bookstore, you know, but you're making the effort to choose, you know, fairly recent writers. 2012, Garden of Evening Mist. 2018, the collection of short stories by Chin, and the movie 2019. So you know, I'm quite happy that it somehow worked out, because one of the things I was worried about with the CMCO and you all are away from the country was the corpus is Malaysian based, and I want you to make the choice for yourself rather than I tell you what you work on. So I was quite concerned about that, but thankfully we had e-copies available. So yeah. All right. So thank you, everybody. It's been a very good session. I hope it's been useful for you to get your final project on the way. And based on the tasks that I have assigned you, please get started. And if you want to see me early in the next week, please make an appointment a few days in advance. All right. And then I'll see you online.
Okay, Victor, all right. See you
Thank
all
you
time.
very much.
Okay. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Okay,
Take
take
care.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Our grateful thanks for the Victor. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Assalamualaikum.